What up, man? I was starting to groove to that music.
What's going on, Bandaid? Yeah. So it was 20 seconds. It worked out. I think it's not bad for our first time here. Anyway, welcome everybody. Let's use some fancy schmancy things. I'm City Gager here from Capoeira Social Project. Today, right now, is starting our Capoeira Conversation, a series. Okay. And to start it all off, we're keeping it in-house. We're going to be talking to Instructor Bandaid, who you just saw a second ago. Boom, here he is again. Okay, from Capoeira Karkara. So yeah, man, what's going on? How you doing today?
Not too bad. It's finally warm and sunny outside. I actually got outside yesterday and did some capoeira for the first time in a little while, and I was really excited to do that. Can't lie. Oh, I felt so good.
Shoes or no shoes?
Oh, no shoes.
Beautiful.
In the grass, goose poop and everything.
Did they attack you by any chance?
No, but somebody did make fun of me. They're like, "What are you, fighting the geese?" And I was like, "Yeah, they get close enough. It's their fault."
Man, I don't know if I'd be brave enough to dance fight with geese.
Nah, they're easy enough to beat up.
So part of today, we're going to talk about our own personal histories, or that led us to working in a nonprofit. Talk about how this nonprofit, Capoeira Social Project, came about and how you joined, because you haven't been there since the inception of the organization, but in the recent moves that are going on, you've been playing a big part. And then, some other stuff we've done along the way, like some musical festivals we've worked at, two groups working together, right? Because I'm from Oficina de Capoeira, based out of Belo Horizonte, and you are with Capoeira Karkara, based out of both Florida, but your mestre is from Salvador. So
correct.
We have these different things to talk about today. So where do you want to start, man?
I don't know. I mean, maybe personal history is probably the best way to go. I mean, about how you got into capoeira, how I got into it.
All right, we'll start with you first.
Or should we start where we met? Should we start where we met?
We could. Actually, speaking of which, to put us both on the spot here with this, actually, let's see if I can find it. Boom. Uh-oh.
You're not pulling up a video from us, are you?
Hold on. I'm trying to.
Oh, no. I'm being blindsided with video.
Not a video.
Oh, okay, great. I think the first time we actually met was at a cherry blossom hoda in DC, if I'm not mistaken.
So, first snafu.
Sorry, we'll edit that in post. It's fine. Nobody will know. It's not like we're live or anything.
Boom. So not quite video.
Yeah.
I don't have video from our first time. So
this just came up on Facebook. I had a feeling this photo was going to pop up.
So this is, what is this? This is a 2015
cherry blossom photo.
Cherry blossom. So for those of you who aren't from the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, in May-ish, springtime, along the coast of the harbor in Washington, D.C., there are a bunch of cherry blossom trees, and they usually bloom all at the same time. So I don't know for how long, man. Well, it's been 2015 is when we met at there, and I don't know how many years before that, Sammy or Instructor Celo from Grupo Ondas kind of organized. I believe he's the one. I don't want to throw that out there, but I believe he's the one that organized.
Him and Jose Canchan. Between the two of them, it always happened. Yeah.
So there was you. Let me see, escaping. Do I have the other one? Okay, just because I need to be an equal opportunity person here. This is me. Awesome. All right. So yeah. However, I want to note, you can see on my ankle that I'm wearing a brace. So I was going through a bit of a recovery from some injury as I'm getting viciously attacked by you. But yeah.
I was taking full advantage.
So that's us. As you can tell, everybody, I'm that guy.
As I recall, you cut me with a razor blade that day. So
repping my Maryland. Also on the pictures. Here you can see my shorts.
Good times.
So yeah, man, I really miss those hoodies, actually.
Yeah, those are so good. Those are so good. That was the first time I did a fully Seiko was in one of those photos.
Oh yeah, damn. On the
It's like
grass.
first and only. I pulled it off and I was like, oh, good. I did it in public in front of people. I can never do it again. I'm done.
So, that wasn't when you started though, right? 2015. That's just when we happened to meet. If you weren't, you were Formado Bandaid at the time.
Yep. And I was teaching in Waldorf, Maryland at the time, and I had approximately 5 students.
Okay.
Yep. Palitao was one of my main students still. I think we all bought beating bows from you that day as well.
Yes. Okay. That was a successful business day for me for sure, because it had been a while. Sorry, I'm going to clean my camera here. It had been a while since I'd been back in the DMV area, because I had been living in Brazil for a while. And at that particular time, I think I had just started teaching capoeira at the high school, South River High School in southern Anne Arundel County. So none of my students actually made it out for that, which is good, because that picture I just showed would have been embarrassing. So what question, do you get this question the most often, to talk about how you started in the capoeira world?
Oh man, the first thing people say is like, "Oh, you've definitely seen Only the Strong, right? Only the Strong." Blah, blah, blah. I didn't see Only the Strong until I've been doing capoeira 5 years. And like when I tell people, I'm like, "Have you played Tekken?" 90% of people are like, "I don't even know what you're talking about," and I hate those people because it's an awesome video game. But yeah, no, I played Eddie Gordo, and I was like, "This guy is breakdancing and doing gymnastics and beating people up." I'm like, that's everything I wanted to do. I loved Bruce Lee growing up and watching all the kung fu movies, but like straight up fighting wasn't enough. Like I saw the acrobatics, I was like, that's really cool. B-boys were a thing, and I was like, that's really cool. I want to do like all of that together in like one thing. And then I met Eddie Gordo via Tekken, and I was like, what is that? And a friend of mine in high school who did a bunch of martial arts, he told me the name of it. He didn't know how to spell it. He didn't really know where it came from, and he made up a bunch of stuff about it. So I, at the time in the 90s, looked up on the internet and found out all the information I could find out, which was all wrong, all fabricated lies. But when I was a teenager, looking it up, I thought it like Akuides, the double leg move, man, that everybody does. When I looked it up, I kid you not, they said that move was designed to kick a rider off of a horse. So the whole idea was you were going to jump over the horse's head and kick the guy right in the chest with both legs to knock him off the horse. And as a kid, I was going, that's awesome.
Well, I think they actually showed that in the movie Besouro, or I think what they called in English.
They did.
The Assailant?
The Assailant? That was terrible. I can't believe they called it The Assailant. That hurt me to the core.
So one thing that's really
the Beetle
that you brought, I know they do that all the time. However, with Brazilian movies and American movies being translated into Portuguese, the movie titles have absolutely nothing to do with it. But one thing that was interesting that you talked about, I don't know why I just capitalized B-boys here like it's an acronym, but that's one thing a lot of people don't know, right? Especially now, Mestre Gelon in New York. I think he just celebrated 40 or 45 years of him and capoeira in the United States. A lot of people don't know that it was like the influence from him and his dance group in New York, where people actually started getting some of these hand spins and Amazonas, you know, the Aú Batido. Some of these moves actually were picked up by B-boys, which is not really part of what we were going to talk about today.
But it's all encompassing, man. That's what happens with capoeira. It touches so many different things.
So my story. So you actually you came across capoeira to start capoeira, which is awesome. I mean, is that so? You didn't see? Oh, it was Eddie Gordo. That's right. You were talking about Tekken.
Right. Yeah. So that was as a teenager. I never saw anything about capoeira again until I was in my 20s and I moved to Melbourne, Florida. And then I happened to find a flyer at the coffee shop, and I was like, "Oh, this is that thing I've been wanting to do for like the past 10 years." So I went to one of their rodas on a Friday night. They only had like 5 or 6 students at the time, and then I went to class the next week, and I just haven't stopped.
So you you originally saw you played Tekken, and that was New York, right? You're from New York.
Yeah, Western New York, Rochester,
and then
middle of nowhere,
Florida, and found capoeira in Florida. Okay.
Fun fact about that, by the way, I found out the year after I moved away from Rochester, New York. A capoeira instructor came to Rochester, New York, and he still lives here. And his nickname is Karkara, with C's, not with K's, right? And guess what group he's with? It's Manjinga Capoeira. Now it's Como Expressal Capoeira. But the head guy of Manjinga is the one who did the movement capture for Eddie Gordo.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
I could have trained with the group that did Eddie Gordo if I had just stayed in New York one more year.
Hey, as they say, stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
So just because maybe people don't know, Karkara is a type of like eagle, everybody. Okay.
Right.
It's actually a very beautiful bird. It's the logo. Oh, you know what I could do? I forgot about these guys. Boom.
Ooh.
Oh, there you go. I have to take down, just so we can see the logos here, the PayPal donation. Anybody who's interested in making a donation to the programs, we're going to talk a little bit about them later. But you can do it through PayPal here, or there's a link in the description where you're watching, where you can actually find some more information about the programs, which we're hoping to fund this fall. But there we go. There's our logos. Beautiful. It's almost like we're professional with this.
Like you've done this before or something.
So I grew up as a Nintendo kid, and then I did have Sega Genesis for a minute. I think Toe Jam and Earl might be a game where I can age myself about when I was in Genesis. I'd never had Tekken. I don't think I had any fighting games. So
I still have a copy of Toe Jam and Earl, like the original. That
was a ridiculous game. So my journey to find capoeira was actually super random and different. I ended up going to, I was at a private school for a while. I was that random punk kid with a bunch of, well-to-do non-punk kids. And then I ended up going to university in the Baltimore area, UMBC actually, right between Baltimore City and DC, which were huge and still are, very big alternative metal or music scenes. And actually one of our other board members, right? So you're on the board, and another board member of ours, Chris, in Capoeira known as Valor, was one of the guys. He took me to one of my first hardcore punk shows in Baltimore at the place called the Autobar. Great little place. I love it. Super intimate. I hope to play there one day with our son.
It's still around, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They actually survived. I think they got like a ton of donations from COVID, campaigns. They had a bunch of donation campaigns and are actually around still, which is awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, so there was a show there, and then I went to another show. It was actually in the beginning of 2001 at the 930 Club, and H2O, which is a hardcore band from New York. They actually introduced me to PMA, which is funny because PMA was actually introduced from a hardcore punk band from DC. But there's some crazy dancing. Most people think about mosh pits and just pushing and shoving and, maybe people diving off a stage. But during these shows, man, the first time I saw Helicoptero, right, was at this first hardcore punk show I went to, where a guy just in the middle of the pit was just like, let me do it. And he just was like, and I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, seeing people do, what we call meia lua de compasso or meia lua expressa, au, armada queixada, all of these things were going on in the middle of a punk scene.
The dance floor.
And yeah, man. And I get goosebumps just thinking about that. So getting kicked in the face with like Doc Martens was a constant for me. 2 or 3 times a week, I would go to shows in DC or Baltimore throughout the early 2000s. And then I think this is slightly embarrassing, but hey, being true, when Fall Out Boy came out with that one song, like Sugar, We're Going Down Swinging or whatever,
their first
I remember that song. I was on vacation with some people I played soccer with, and that song came on. And so I just started doing some random spin kicks at the beach. And this girl's like, what is he doing? And another one responded, oh, he's doing capoeira. And I was like, what is this word you speak of? So then I looked it up, and I saw it on Dave Attell. Dave Attell had a show called Insomniacs, and the Wild Boys, which was like Steve-O and some other guy from Jackass. Oh, I think Party Boy, Chris Pontius. Both of them around the same time had a show where they were in Rio for Carnival, and they came across capoeira rodas in the street. And so I was like, wow, look, that's that capoeira stuff that girl was talking about. They're doing spin kicks and cartwheels to music like I do spin kicks and cartwheels to music. I have to check that out. And so then I, researched, and I was in Annapolis at the time, and found a dude.
That's the joy of living somewhere where things happen. You can look it up and actually go do it.
So yeah, I was lucky in that sense because I participated in a workshop with a guy from Capoeira Ginga. His name Jason White, but in Capoeira he was Galego, a very whiter than both of us guy who was teaching in Annapolis. And then the guy who became one of my first teachers in Oficina, he was a graduado Bae, who was in California, and I don't know where he is nowadays, actually. You know how capoeira politics go sometimes. People come into the group, move from here to there. But he's out there someplace. He was a phenomenal musician, but he was teaching in Baltimore, and that's how 2005 was when I started capoeira.
Oh, wow. I think I started in 2004, 2005. So we started at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I did not, this whole time, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize we started capoeira at the same time. That's funny. Yeah, man.
I mean, I say I have 20 years because it's like I went to my first hardcore punk show in like end of 2000, beginning 2001. So I've been spin kicking and doing cartwheels into people since then.
I mean, yeah, I was that weirdo that was training in his yard by himself, like all the time, like getting any information I could. So yeah, I get you. If that's the case, I've been doing capoeira since 94, 95.
So from that, right, we both, I mean, you're Matt, I'm Justin, but both of us have these weird
these weird nicknames
down here. So what is let me bring up this one. Tell us a little bit about this story here, man.
So I like the fact that you have Bandaid versus Bandage. Because, all right, so my first instructor, he's Brazilian, of course, but he was born in Brazil, spent most of his early years in, Belgium and France, and then came to America. So his accent was thicker than steel-cut oatmeal. And even the Brazilians are like, I don't know what he's saying. So he was trying to call me Bandeji, but none of us could understand what he was saying. And he goes, like a Band-Aid, you peel off. And finally, the one guy just goes, I'm going to call you Band-Aid. And ever since then, it just stuck with Band-Aid, even though it was supposed to be Bandage, Bandeji. That's the best part about that story. The rest of that story is boring as all get out because I just taped up my feet a lot.
So, so it comes down to the fact that you have a trademark apelido, right, which is Portuguese for nickname, and that comes about from Brazilian culture, right? Like everybody in Brazil in general. Like let's think about soccer players. We have Ronaldinho, which means little Ronaldo because that's like his name.
Right.
But everybody has nicknames, and that's super strong in the capoeira community, which is where I get Siriguejo as well, which is actually a combination of Siri, right, and Caranguejo.
Right, two different kinds of crabs, right?
Which are that's spelled terribly.
No, M and N are interchangeable when you're making typos.
Okay, there we go. So which was a mistake from my previous teacher and myself with trying to understand Portuguese. He called me caranguejo, which is a type of crab, because Baltimore, we eat crabs all the time. But I was not aware that in Portuguese, all the crabs have different names, right? In English, we just add an adjective.
Right.
Dungeon crab or blue crab or hermit crab. All these have their own specific name in Portuguese, which I didn't know at the time. So I got a tattoo in Salvador, Bahia of a crab, what I thought was a crab, because that's what we call crabs, right? Which I learned is actually what they call siri. Siri is a blue crab, and caranguejo is like a Dungeness crab with a big claw and a tiny crab.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
So a guy who, Grillo, who was actually Quero in the movie Besouro, he'll be on a feed in a month or so here having one of these conversations. He was actually the first guy. He was like, "Oh, you're not caranguejo, you're siriguejo." Once he saw my tattoo, he was the guy who really changed my name to siriguejo at the time. So actually something else that's fun is Mr. Crab, right? Which I also didn't really know. This is also his name is siriguejo.
See, I'm trying to get sponsored by Johnson & Johnson because of Bandaid. So
okay,
you can get SpongeBob. I'm gonna get Johnson & Johnson.
We'll try to go that way a little bit. Okay, I feel you.
They can send their donations direct to donate at cspmd.org.
True. Good plug. Okay, let's see.
I think it's appropriate that you don't have a straight up nickname, and I like how it's lost in translation for both of us to get our nicknames. I feel like it's a very American experience for capoeira.
Okay, let me see here. I'm looking at my notes here. We have a few watchers. We've got a couple thumbs up. One thing I wanted to talk.
That's good. I can't see that stuff from my end.
One thing I wanted to say for us is we might want to talk a little slower for our non-native speakers, but that's also kind of difficult because we don't pay attention to that as often.
It's very difficult to slow down, especially when you and I get going.
So did you want to talk about the history of your group or leave that for another day? Because I know you had talked that maybe Bacino would talk to you one day about that or something. I don't know. Yeah,
I'd love to get Bacino on and get him to discuss it in detail. But I mean, I can tell you this: we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary because I think we started Karkara in 2011, and we broke off from Topazio in order to form it. So when I started, it was Capoeira Topazio, which, when I thought of capoeira, I don't know if you're familiar with Topazio. I think you are, and most people are. It is not what I pictured capoeira to be. So it was a very interesting introduction to the art form compared to what I had anticipated. But I mean, it got me to where I wanted to be, and I learned a lot, and I was able to do a lot because of it. And then when we broke off and formed Capoeira Karkara, I was able to explore a much larger part of capoeira, and thus been able to really round out my game and play different styles and different variations of capoeira. And it's been a lot of fun learning and growing. My time in DC was great because I played with various different groups, and you all play very differently. Like you in particular play very differently than a lot of people I know. I've never dealt with so many headbutts in my life.
So there's a reason for that, right? My flexibility gauge, right, comes from being a crab, right? Crabs aren't very flexible, so the ability for me to maybe martello you in the face is less likely than me being able to reach your face with my head. But that's a secret of the trade.
Yeah, no, we're gonna tell you about
that. So yeah, just wanted. So when you started, right? You said Topazio was a little bit different than your expectation, your idea. Right?
Yeah, correct.
And I want people to understand too, because we've talked about this before, and like you just said, you learned a lot in the DC area. That different doesn't necessarily mean better or worse, right?
Correct, 100%. Yeah,
different. Apples and oranges are different, and that does not make maybe you like an apple more than an orange, or vice versa.
I mean, everybody's going to have their taste, which is why you end up with the group you end up with. But like, I mean, when I started Topazio, they were, I mean, I told you I was looking at Eddie Gordo. I was expecting a little bit more, it's hard to find the right descriptive words for it without making it sound either negative or positive, but more of a flowy style, less rigid, less traditional martial arts look. Whereas Topazio really focused on clean lines, clean attacks, and they were very, very aggressive and counterattack oriented, which was great. It was actually fun to learn that, and I feel very confident in any Hoda that I go to because of that, because I feel like I learned to fight first and then flow next. Whereas I've experienced other groups where they did it the other way. I think the outcome is the same in the long run, but it's just different philosophies to get to the same conclusion. And I will tell you this, when I got into the rest of the capoeira world, one of the first things everyone noted, they're like, your kicks are like so clean. They're like so straight. And like, apparently I did a lot of martellos, which I didn't know that. to the point where we went to a Halloween Hoda where we wore costumes. And I know that's another topic, but nobody knew who I was, and I wanted to see if they could find out from my game. I played once, got out of the Hoda, and they're like, Bandaid! I'm like, how'd you know? And they're like, you did a martello. So that's just everybody has their own style. I guess I was picturing more like Cordage Oro style when I picture capoeira, and then I started with Topazio, which was very different style than anything I anticipated.
So yeah, I'll definitely say for sure. And it's crazy. I mean, I was in Salvador where Topazio started, and they had a bachazada one weekend. I was there, and their Hoda on the street. So I'm not going to say street Hoda, but their Hoda on the street was insane. It was like Jinga, kick, punch, fight, separate, two new people, yes. Jinga. So, but at the same
we learned how to grapple real early on, by the way. Yeah. Like takedowns and grapples were a staple part of the game.
I really enjoyed the workshop that I think he was contramestre at the time, right? Betinho, when he came up and taught a workshop in Waldorf, I loved it because, I mean, Mestre High, too, my master here in Belo Horizonte, he is known for being very everybody that I meet in the street when I'm like, go to street Hoda or something and I play and I'm wearing an Oficina shirt, their first question to me is, oh, is Mestre High still bravo? Is he still angry or like very brutish in the Hoda? And I'm like, you know, it is what it is.
A little bit.
So that's the fame of Oficina too, that as a group in Belo Horizonte, they really came up fighting for their space. But what I really loved about Betinho's workshop was like one of the first things he taught was, okay, Jinga, elbow. and I'm like, okay, I love it. Because that's, and like you said before, the headbutts, elbows, knees aren't super always common, but they're my three go-to moves.
And I mean, I feel like they're an underrated. And going back to the whole style thing, like there's a lot of groups that they don't even talk about that kind of stuff, and I'm like, dude, it's part of it, man. Like that's part of it.
Oh, sorry. Trying to first time through using this interface. It's interesting to go back and forth with the banners and then the logos and everything. But yeah, let me throw something else up here real quick. Boom. So we talked a little bit about your group. I like it. We showed our first time together there. I think even before the you coming on board and talking about us joining, I want to pull up this picture here because I think it was one of the first times.
Look at that dorky guy. Oh, that's you.
To get, I was hoping you would zoom in a little bit more to get our baby faces. But once again, I think this is 2015. I was organized. This is. Do you remember where this is?
Yeah, man. It's the docks in Annapolis.
Yeah, man. So it's hard to see on my shirt, right? But this was a little inspiration that I took from street Hodas here in Belo Horizonte.
Variação?
Yeah, this was like, it says Variação de Liberdade, right? And it has a picture of a stylized photo of Kunta Kinte's punishment, where he had half his foot cut off because he, as a slave, he escaped several times, then unfortunately got caught. He had to decide between being castrated or losing half a foot. So yeah, he lost half a foot. This is according to like the story of Alex Haley, who has a statue not too far from this actual location in downtown Annapolis, because that's where the story goes that Kunta Kinte was imported and then sold into slavery in the States. I bring that up because this is one of our first interactions. You can see Katatao there as well, the guy in the black shirt. He's also an Annapolis, Baltimore area capoeira teacher. I wanted to bring that one up first because the next picture I think was really where, and I don't have the one all of us together. I thought I found it, but then I didn't. So it's kind of hard to see.
This is the first demo we did together.
Exactly. Yeah. This was actually for 2000. I think this was the January of 2015 with you and Katatao playing movement. Right. There's me in my street clothes on the berimbau. This was actually a fundraiser for the Kunta Kinte Heritage Festival to actually return, because they had I think lost funding or something like that, so they hadn't been in Annapolis for a couple years. But yeah, that was the first time that we hold on, nope, not that one. There we go. that really did anything together. How was that?
That was the first like official event we did together. Yeah. I mean, that was always fun. I love doing events. I'll be honest with you. When I got into capoeira, like doing performances and events like that, I love them. I don't know what it was. I absolutely love doing them. I love doing performances. I love doing events. It's almost my favorite part of capoeira now.
Well, that's good news because we have some more of them coming up. I'm hoping we actually get back into the Kunta Kinte Festival. I probably should have grabbed some more pictures from that, because actually 2000, obviously it didn't happen last year because of COVID. The festival itself didn't. 2019, I think even Katatao was kind of stopped. You had moved. I had moved. Capoeira Social Project kind of was on a hiatus in the Baltimore area. So I think 2018 was the last time that CSP was there. And I believe it was you, right? You led I led the whole thing. Katatao came. Obviously he's a big supporter. I love Katatao, but I led it. We did a couple workshops and a stage performance. It was a lot of fun. We even did a nice makulele presentation. Yeah, that's the picture that I kind of wish I had right now. Sorry, I'm not going to go look for it while we're live now. But yeah, I'm hoping that they'll invite us back for something similar this year again at the end of September.
That'd be fantastic.
But yeah, so that was. Go for it.
Go ahead. I was going to say, on that note, I mean, we're talking about performances and getting together and stuff like that, but I know your story is similar to mine, and it's similar to a lot of Americans for capoeira, about how you got into teaching yourself. Like, how did you get in? Like, you found capoeira, you got with Oficina, you had an instructor, Brazilian, right? And then what happened from there? Because I know your story is similar to mine, and there was like an article not too long ago, or I say not too long ago. At this point, it was probably 8 years ago, by a guy, Guerrero, who's in the Midwest, I believe. I think he's in Minnesota or something like that. I could be wrong. But he's a pretty big name on social media now. But his article kind of went viral in the capoeira world because it spoke to so many of us. And I feel like you're in the same situation. Like, we were students when we started teaching, and technically we weren't really at the level to teach. But we were so passionate about it that we wanted to keep it going, and our instructors had to leave for whatever reason. And it's correct, right? Same thing happened with you? Correct.
So yeah, that was like I said, I was training with at the time Graduado Bandaid in 2005. In 2006, he got married in Brazil, in Salvador, and so I went along for his wedding, and so did several other teachers. Other of his students. We all came to Brazil. I ended up staying 4 months to train, try to learn Portuguese, blah blah blah. When I went back to Baltimore in the spring of 2007, he had moved to California. And at the time, there really weren't any other groups going on. Hopkins, I think, had a Morcego every once in a while, teaching for a capoeira club at Johns Hopkins. Of course, there was Treinel, now Mestre Sequer, with Capoeira Fica, right? Which was a Capoeira Angola group. So wasn't really, and at the time, I wasn't really aware of all the group dynamics, different styles. I knew I was Oficina, so I had to kind of stay in that realm. So I ended up getting permission from Mestre High with like my second chord to end up teaching, because we still had a small group. There were still people who had gone to the wedding and who were still training or wanted to train. So I ended up having to, well, out of necessity, really, desire to continue training. I didn't want to stop.
Right.
So it was one of those things where in order to keep training with people, I had to teach, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but that continued for several years. And actually, every year I came back to Brazil. Was lucky in that sense. I would save my money and work. And then every December there'd be an event in Belo Horizonte. So I'd come down for like 2 or 3 weeks to visit Belo Horizonte and in Salvador to train and get the contact, the true contact with Capoeira. And I say true contact because there weren't Brazilians. There was no Brazilian really in Baltimore at the time to really give me the interaction. Facebook, I mean, I don't know if you dealt with people in Brazil or Capoeira people who were using what was called Orkut, Orkut. Yeah. They called Orkut.
Do you remember Capoeira Espacio?
No.
They did a social media network for just Capoeira people for a little while.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It was kind of cool, but I mean, like, it was so specific that obviously didn't last. It might still be going. I don't know.
But yeah, man. So that's how that happened for me. And then, sadly, I kind of felt abandoned by my teacher. But then I can't really complain because at the same time, like in 2011, I kind of did the same thing to move to Brazil to really improve my Portuguese and training. You just don't know how hard it is to actually get the necessary paperwork and documentation for Brazilian Capoeira teacher, right? I mean, they just don't hand out visas easily for that.
Right. I mean, I never faulted my instructor for what he had to do. I mean, I trained with him for like just 2 years, and then he had to go. And I mean, I got it. Like, life situations changed. Like, he had to go back to Brazil for a little while because of visa reasons, and then he wanted to move around and try things out. So he ended up in California as well. And then he also ended up in Australia. But I mean, in that time, like, we had a small group in Melbourne, Florida, which is like at the time was kind of isolated from everything else. So we didn't have anything but each other, and we had a really small, tight collective that was training at the time, and we basically just taught each other for a little while. And at the time, we were still Topazio, and Bachio was still Topazio. And he lived 2 hours away in Boynton Beach. And one of our fellow students called him and basically begged him. They're like, listen, we want to keep training. We need someone to come up here and teach us, blah, 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 blah. So he would come up once a month at least to teach workshops for us, which was fantastic and really kept us learning and growing. And in the meantime, we would just try and maintain everything we were doing and really out-condition all the other groups if we could. Meaning we worked out harder. We tried to work out harder to make up for our lack of knowledge. But I mean, from that, I mean, Florida, fortunately, I had more Brazilians and a little bit more Capoeira influence, not immediately nearby, but throughout the state. So once a week, we were traveling out to Orlando, which was like an hour and a half drive one way to go train with an instructor out there. Even when Bachio wasn't coming up for workshops, we would drive down to Boynton Beach, make the 2-hour trek down there. We'd head down to Miami and train with some people. We'd go out to Sarasota and Naples and train over there. Like, we tried to make it everywhere we could to train.
So yeah, that what's it called? Commitment, right? Because I mean, at the time too, when I came back and I was teaching, and actually there was another guy with us, Palmito, who was in the group, Brian. I think you know from interactions online. I don't know if you ever met him, but he was training with Oficina for a while as well. And the two of us, we would drive up after, we would drive up to Philly too, because at the time, right? Like
Doctor
I said,
was there at the time, yeah.
who? Doctor?
Doctor, yeah.
Yeah,
He would have been in Philly at the time, yeah.
He's more Haitian now, right? So the thing is Mestre High, he came to Baltimore a couple times for bachizados, right? And this there was a guy, Claudio. He was actually a part of Capoeira Ginga, which their Mestre Loki, is also from Minas Gerais. So the styles were very similar. This like contemporary Benguela, Salbento Grande for Regional with Angola. And I don't know what happened with their group. I think Mestre Jamaica, who's out in Salt Lake City, right? He was also Capoeira Ginga. Fortical was down in Texas. There was a bunch of Capoeira Gingas around the States. And then Koki, I think you met the people who were up in Lancaster, right? Mai and that group. They were also part of Capoeira Ginga. And then something happened, and Koki, he left the group. Gallego in Annapolis, he left the group. You know, group dynamics, I think maybe it slowed down. Real life happened for some people. So Claudio, who was a professor, I think at the time, he ended up joining our group as a stagiario, you know, and then got his instructor, and then he's a professor now.
That's a stranger for everybody that doesn't know that word.
So stagiario too is this idea. Yeah, somebody comes to the group they're getting tested out to see what their new position is going to be, their new ranking. So I would go up with Palmito like every Friday, at least every other Friday, if not like every Friday. We take the drive up to Philadelphia. Actually, that's a lie. Philadelphia is a little chic. We would drive up to Riverside, New Jersey. Okay. I'm trying to avoid saying that I used to go to New Jersey all the time, but so no offense to New Jersey. We'd drive up to the nation's armpit.
Good save.
And train with Claudio. And then sometimes we just do the Valle Volta. We'd go up and then come straight back. Or we turned it into a weekend and we'd stay up and train there. But yeah, it was, man, that was a lot.
When I look back on all the travel that I used to put in one day just to go train, I was like, what? I couldn't do that now. I won't lie. I couldn't do that now. I'd be like, there's no way. I would drive out to Orlando. We would train. So we'd make it out to Orlando. We'd right out of work, get in the car, head to Orlando. We'd get there at like 7 p.m., if not a little bit later. And we would train until like midnight. We trained for like 3-4 hours, and then we drive home. And I'm like, what? I'm crazy. I loved it. I would totally do it again, but not now. I was a younger man.
Real quick, pause for the cause. We have a few viewers. You can see here scrolling across your screen. If you'd like to make a donation to any of our programs, as I finally put our logo wasn't up in the corner, but you have it behind you. Capoeira Social Project. We're a small nonprofit, educational nonprofit based out of Baltimore with some programs in Belo Horizonte. In the description of this video, there's also a link if you'd like to check out some more information about these programs. In the fall, we're hoping to launch a pretty succinct isn't the word, but big is not the word either. A performing arts program with a lot of Brazilian-based movements. Capoeira, samba de coco, samba de roda, maculele, frevo, visual arts programs as well to make, you can see behind me, there are a couple instruments. There is a shekere hanging and then a berimbau. But to make these instruments in our visual arts program, you can find some more information, link in the description for this video. Or if you'd just like to make a donation, feel free. Oh, we have a pandero there. Beautiful, right? We learned how to make recycled panderos. Oh my goodness, right? For upcycling, bottle caps, and old PVC piping left over from construction, upcycling, and musical instruments. So some of the things actually fall into two categories: performing arts and visual arts. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the history of Capoeira Social Project. Now that we're 40 minutes into this thing.
You mean about the thing we're actually doing? All right, yeah, good call.
So
maybe
we already mentioned at the very beginning, you joined in 2015. A couple of our interns were like, well, when did you start? Because we have some grant writing interns at the moment. They want to know, I'm going to do a one shot here. Boom, boom. About the history. So real quick, like I said, I started in Capoeira in 2005. In 2008 was when Capoeira Social Project was born. The International Refugee Committee sent, which is an organization that takes care of refugees around the world internationally. Clever name, right? They contacted us because at the time, there was a large influx of Somali and Sudanese refugees being placed into Baltimore. And we had a term of about 45 students, I think, from the age of 4 all the way up to seniors in high school. So from 4 to 17. And they contacted us thinking that capoeira having African roots would be something that maybe the students could, bond over, try something new, and have some type of connection in that way. We said, sure, why not? So during this process, it was about a semester. We taught, I think, two times a week. Oh, man, 12 years ago. It's hard to remember how often we taught, honestly. But we taught, like I said, 40-some students in a large age range how to teach capoeira. And we got paid for it, which is awesome. But being the good souls that we are, we decided, you know what, let's roll that money over. And we actually ended up buying all the students capoeira t-shirts, uniform t-shirts, if you will, with that money. And then it was suggested to us, you know what you could do is become a nonprofit if you want to do that more. So I personally at the time was in a dead-end job, which afforded me the opportunity for two things. One was to do all the paperwork for a nonprofit while at work. Yay! That was awesome. Because it was right before the bubble. I was in construction right before the bubble. So there were some good sides. There was a lot of work, but then there wasn't. The other thing is I started my master's degree as well. So during that time, 2008 was when we started the process. Because I did it myself, it took way longer than it would be if we had paid somebody who knew what the hell they were doing. So we didn't actually get our status until 2009. Okay. But we got it. So since 2009, we have been a nonprofit registered with the federal government as 501c3
for education. 501c3 status.
Right. So as for educational purposes. Now, before we just marketed ourselves solely as a capoeira organization. Now, I say that because I want to get your opinion on this, because I asked none of our board of directors about this rebranding campaign that I started last year, because a lot of people don't know what capoeira is. As mentioned before, most either ask us this question: "Oh, did you start because of Eddie Gordo or only the strong?" For me, it was neither. For you, it was Eddie Gordo. More recently, I didn't put it up here because it was way after we both started capoeira. Bob's Burgers. I get a lot of people who mention Bob's Burgers. Or even more recently than that, we have Will Ferrell in the movie Get Hard.
Yep. Actually, it's been in a lot of movies like that recently that have come up. Wanderlust was another one that incorporated some, not a well-known movie, Paul Rudd, Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, you know what? I have to go. I actually do like that movie. I have to go back to check that scene out. But yeah, so we're not really changing anything, but I'm just kind of curious as to what your input is on this rebranding, going from a strictly capoeira organization to now saying we're performing in visual arts, and actually STEM in there.
I mean, to me, it just kind of makes sense, most of it, especially the performing in visual arts. I mean, with our group, I know with every group, there's, the ceremony every year, the graduation ceremony, the bachillerato, if it's your first one, all that. It's never just showing up and doing rodas. I mean, it can be that, and that's fine, and that's great, and I love it. But most groups put on a performance. They put on a show, they touch on something, or they get their students involved, and they do a showcase of sorts. And I love it. I always love doing it. I just told you earlier, I love doing the shows. I love doing the events. And I feel like the performing arts is just an offshoot of capoeira as a whole. I mean, and without that performance side, capoeira wouldn't have survived as long as it has, and grown as much as it has. I mean, part of the showboating of capoeira is the region that one of the reasons that I've heard Hey Janelle was really developed is because there was too many people out there just doing cartwheels in the streets and forgetting what capoeira really came from and things like that. So I think part of continuing the education of capoeira is to include all of those aspects of it. And not only that, the history of capoeira is parallel to a lot of those performance arts. So to me, it's a logical step.
So do you remember, since you say you like performing, do you remember this photo I just threw up here?
I totally do.
So once again, putting the social back into the capoeira community. This is from what, probably 2016?
Somewhere around there. Yeah. I have the videos on YouTube. I'll have to send you a link after this.
Oh my! I don't know if I want to see that.
The whole performance. The whole performance is on YouTube, buddy.
So this is where we didn't get to participate in the choreography from Ashe Capoeira, right? This was when Mestre Bajal's daughter, and I don't remember her name, honestly. I'm sorry. I know her real name.
Oh my gosh. Kanuba? No, I can't remember.
But she came down. She did a workshop that we both trained at, right? And then I think that was this one. And then they did. I might be confusing them, but it doesn't matter. This was for a Makulele performance that Katatao with his Ashe Capoeira Maryland students performed. But we participated in the musical aspect of the Makulele presentation. This is literally the only picture from that date that I have for some reason, where we look super, ready to rock and roll. And really perform.
Why do I look like your bodyguard? Why? Why?
That's true. Yeah.
Sir, please step back. Watch out for my client.
You have to protect the drum. But anyway.
I remember I was basically just the metronome in that show. That's all I was. I was doing the 4-beat. That was it.
So yeah, that was. That was a fun time there. So yeah,
I believe that was the show. That was the show where I did Aquarides over Katatao while he was a headstand.
Oh yeah, from the capoeira part.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know the Aquarides in the b-boy language, that would be like the double leg.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh no.
So we did that for the solos. That was fun. Unrehearsed, on the fly. We're like, hey, I'll bet you I can do this. All right, I'll do the headstand.
So yeah, so that's boom. We were talking about our history since then. So that the first time we really got together was and I think it was actually before you actually even came on board to really say you wanted to help. I just called on the troops, right, to have you and Katatao come out for the Kunta Kinte festival, and then I think really you had asked me in regards to all the paperwork and information to starting a nonprofit, which I graciously shared with you, and then came up with the idea of, hey, rather than you spending a ton of money doing that yourself, an effort, why not just come on board and try to reap the benefits, which have been slow to come, but I'm sure they'll be here soon, right?
Yep.
So you helped out with that. Let me see. I'm just trying
we were really starting to put the social in the social project.
Correct.
Speaking of groups coming together, like I know groups have always gotten together, but going back to our history, when I started, man, with Topazio, I wasn't even allowed to go to an open roda until I got to my third court. Like we weren't allowed. It just wasn't allowed. Like you couldn't do things with other groups. You couldn't go anywhere. And even at that level, you had to go with an instructor, a professor, somebody higher level that could, watch things, see what's going on. And now that I've been in capoeira for a while, I understand why they did it. I don't think it was a bad thing. I don't think it was a controlling thing, which I know a lot of people have talked about. It's just, it was a different world in capoeira, especially, if you start going back into the late 80s, early 90s. Like, if you went to an open event in Brazil, you could get in trouble there, man. Like, you got to watch yourself. So it's part of it was about looking out for the students. But when it got to being in America, it was a little different. So the dynamics and the interactions were different. So it was easier to work with other groups, and we could work for a communal cause versus my group over your group type thing.
Right. And I think, I mean, that's still kind of, I mean, when you get down to it, it's still business. So, I mean, you can still kind of, hold on, we had a, hold on. Thanks, Christian. I know it's like 5 minutes later, we've moved on, but he wanted us to make a note. Yeah, Ocean's 12 too. That's right. The dude who had to go through the
laser grid.
The laser grid.
Yeah,
that was actually the best representation of capoeira so far in pop culture, I would say, because
Step Up 3.
Okay, well, granted, I'm about to talk about Ocean's 12 as a sequel, so I can't say well, Step Up. I mean, 3.
Hey, but it was Gata Brava, so that's pretty good, right?
Okay. So, I mean, because there have been, right, we have Meet the Fockers. There was a terrible I mean, I don't want to say it was a good representation, but it wasn't very good. From Get Hard, also not a really good representation.
Yep. There was actually a small scene in Harry Potter Goblet of Fire.
Okay, but that was also more, more of like a tricker, right? It wasn't really
No, that was Points Nino, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a Truan Capoeirista doing capoeira moves, but it was like, it wasn't really told what it was.
Right. So, and I mean, neither was it in Ocean's 12. You didn't really see that either. Okay. How do I? Oh, hide it. I can hide it there. He also says, "Hey." Okay. But yeah. So I mean, Ocean's 12, but that's where you actually. I mean, they didn't even show it as capoeira. It was just one dude doing movement. Yep. Which I think was still a way better representation than like Will Ferrell. I don't know if you've seen Get Hard, but he's on a boat and he's Bensal kick, and he like kicks the dude, and then he's like Ashe, and it's just such a caricature.
At the same time, though, in that movie, I think they did it justice because the instructor was just like, oh God, like he was like, yeah, well, we're trying. But then when it did kick in at the end of the movie, when he got angry and he started doing capoeira, I was like, all right, I'm not upset. Like Bob's Burgers, like, I'm not really upset. Like technically, this is pretty dead on. Like
the ponytail is not a
ponytail.
Not
Brazil.
I mean, actually, it could be
studio smelling like feet, though. That definitely was a thing back in the day.
See, the thing for the ponytail for me, I mean, you just cut your hair. There was a time when I was growing my hair out, I was thinking about doing dreadlocks. Totally other story.
It gives you +5 to capoeira when you have dreadlocks. You know that.
But see, the thing for me is I'm more of the Fight Club idea mentality of like where they're like it gives you a reason to keep your nails and your hair cut short. Because if you have dreadlocks, it's really easy, or long hair in general, really easy to grab your hair and just knee somebody in the face. Now, I say that at Capoeira Social Project, we are on the more peaceful side of things. But you should always be prepared for the worst, right? And so my idea is to keep the haircut short.
Well, I'll be honest with you. So on that note, I feel that you're touching on something very important there. Like we use the term martial art. I like to say capoeira is a cultural art, but that's another story. But it's also a martial art, and all martial arts are that nowadays. I remember when I first got to Maryland, I was talking to a Kung Fu Academy about doing some capoeira classes there. And the guy asked me a very peculiar question. He was trying to be all like, sensei-ish or whatever. And he's like, tell me about the art. And I started talking about like some of the movements of capoeira and some of the like the more flowy side of capoeira. Like, we do a lot of spin kicks. We do this, we do that. And he goes, no. I want you to tell me about the art. And what he really meant is I want you to tell me about the martial, because he was asking like, where's the fighting come in? And I'm like, well, that's the martial side. Like, yeah, you talk about eye gouges, fish hooks, elbows, knees, like hitting people in the crotch, poking them in the eye. Like, these are things that you learn about in martial arts nowadays, even in like Kung Fu and other martial arts. I mean, if you're doing MMA, you're learning how to beat somebody up in a rules-based setting. when you're learning traditional martial arts, you got to remember where these things came from. These things came from street fights. These things came from the Greco-Roman days, where like there was a guy who was known in the wrestling world as Littlefinger or something like that, because what he did is the first thing he did would break somebody's finger, and he would usually win the fight because of it. So like these are things you need to know about, and that's why we mimic some of them in the Capoeira Haldas and events. And I know you love to do it because you caught me with the razor blade the first Halda we were in, and I was like, this mother just. I mean, you would obviously it wasn't a real razor blade, but I knew what you were doing, and I was like, God, he got me good, like So I had to ham it up too, but. So yeah, and we don't necessarily teach people to beat each other up that way, but you definitely learn, defenses and offenses that are effective, but you talk about why they're not used that way in an event now, and I feel that that's a very important thing to touch on. That's where the art side comes into any martial activity in today's day and age.
So here's let's see. So,
oh Jesus! I didn't know I was going to get shocked with videos.
Just because this was one. This is from what 2000, the very beginning of 2019.
Looks like it. Is that is that when Onsa's Maestre came? What's his name?
No, but this was at Onsa's studio. This is where I was in town for a little while and gave a workshop. Remember there was some music, and then I gave a workshop, but it wasn't really like straight capoeira moves, right? It was this is one that we did. Remember? So this was just talking about.
We did the big one with the machetes. That one was fun.
So yeah,
my students talked about that for a long time. They loved it.
So this was just one of those ones like we're talking about, MMA and different skills. So right here's us just trying to be reactive and target oriented, right? Trying to focus on different targets at one time. I just really like it to the very end. I give you a nice elbow to the face. Sorry. Which I didn't realize had a big reaction at the end of it.
You saw it. It was awesome. I was like, "Yep, he got me." Yep.
But I really like that one. I bring that up because it was just I think a different take, and I'm not saying that was my interpretation of capoeira. I'm going to talk to Mestre Ferradura in several weeks, and he kind of helped me open my eyes a little bit to different ways of interacting with using capoeira and interacting with people, especially when you're dealing with a clientele who aren't capoeira trainers. Right. I mean, people who train capoeira regularly. And I bring that up because we've done some things that I don't see a lot of groups out there doing. And it's bringing capoeira to different communities. And one of those particular communities, which we have gotten into, are music festivals. Right. So do you want to talk about a little bit about what you think about this idea?
I absolutely love it. I mean, I was not a huge music festival goer, but when I found out there was a lot of workshops and things like that going on at music festivals and what they were, I was like, yeah, this makes total sense. This makes total sense. I mean, if they're doing yoga at this music festival, they definitely want capoeira there. The people are into it. The vibe is right for it. I mean, you're talking about music and movement being put together. That is capoeira. I will say when we went and did it the first time in Floyd Fest, I genuinely loved the way that you translated some of the information. And it really opened my eyes to a different style of teaching some of the movements. Because I came from a very it has to be done this way kind of background. And then you kind of you basically told a story and got these people to move kind of the correct way. And I was like, I like this. I like this a lot.
I'm glad you brought that up. Just because here, we'll talk about Floyd first, because that's the first festival that we started working at. And that was, I think the first time we went might have been 2013. I honestly don't remember, but I think it was 2013. Oh, hold on. Did I add it? Add to stream.
Did we get a super chat? We should have set up something for super chats. Yeah, I love this drill, by the way. I use it for warm-ups in various different workshops that I do now.
So it's fun because right. We have 3 people involved in this activity. None of these people have ever done capoeira before in their life, really. Actually, a couple of them have done it here or there, but this is out in the middle of Virginia. No capoeira groups really close. I think the closest is Roanoke, which is still like an hour away if you drive through the mountains. So 2 people are making sure they're keeping connection with the verga, or the stick we use for the instrument. Yeah. Boom.
But they can't grab it.
Well, they can't grab it. Yeah. So there has to be some type of communication through body language or nonverbal. And then the third person has to avoid being touched by it, either by jumping over, going under. Now, for capoeira people, we would like to do like crab crawl, right? Or awu, the cartwheel over. Yeah. These folks, they're just doing what they could, and that's all that really matters. Well,
the thing about that, though, like with capoeiristas versus, normal people, muggles, it's very hard to get your average American to move the way a capoeirista should move. So this is one of those drills that kind of helps facilitate that it breaks the ice a little bit, basically. And which is great. There's one of my students right there.
Seeing triples.
And there, yep. She's going under. So I really like that one. It's fun to introduce people that have never done capoeira or probably would have no other means maybe to necessarily encounter it to really come into it and hopefully spark that interest randomly, like both of us kind of came across it really randomly. That's an awesome way to add the social part, right? Let's see. There we go. With capoeira. Sorry, I got kind of lost because here's the other part that I really love about music festivals or just music in general. I'm going to make this one big for us in a second here. But there's me on pandeiro, you're on berimbau. We're in the front of. Actually, let me do this first real quick, so people can understand. Boom. When we go to a festival, we set up a booth. We're very much like try to give that Salvador Bahia, Barracão kind of vibe, and set up shop. We have berimbaus for people to try out. A bunch of handmade jewelry from street vendors, and some of them are actually made by indigenous people, right? We have a bunch of other instruments, got to have the Maryland flag with us. But we have this interactive booth so people can come in and really check some stuff out. The thing that's really awesome, we have this random dude, right? We have, here's a student.
Yeah, my students in yellow, the dude in the green shirt was just some random guy who had an instrument with him.
And he actually, I think this was in 2018, right? In 2019, he was there again carrying around this Ganza / Heko Heko. So actually jammed with him again.
Nice.
After this as well, right? So we'll just watch a little bit of this here. Boom. I'm going to hop through it a little bit. Whoops. So another part that's really fun about this, right? Troy is on a drum that I got from a guy who joined our group. He's from Amapá, which is a state way out in the Amazon, and he made that out of PVC piping, just like this pandeiro, right?
Yep.
And arame, normal arame that we use for berimbau is like the ring that's holding on the top couro. Okay. The pandeiro I'm playing is actually from Pedro, who is going to be the third in this series. Okay, and then the berimbau that you're playing is actually one that I believe I had made. Most of the berimbau.
Yeah, that was one you had made personally.
I had made. So that's just a little throwback to our talk about the virtual arts and the performing arts, how they come together.
But on that note, I mean, it took me a while to get used to it, but I mean, capoeira, as far as I'm aware, is the only martial art that has a musical requirement to it. Like you have to learn the music to do capoeira. They're synonymous. Like you can't separate them. They're not separate things. They are together. And as someone who has minimal musical talent, I was like, I had to pick the one that has a musical element to it. I mean, now I love it, but yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the music for a long time. Because I mean, I wouldn't want to do capoeira without the music so much, but like, yeah, it was not my talent. Let's put it that way.
Well, don't worry, man, because in the fall, hopefully when we have our studio up and running, there'll be even more music to try. You'll get to learn samba de coco, and we'll both have to.
I look forward to it.
Samba de roda, but we'll get there for sure. Look, we've been going on for like an hour and a little bit. I don't. Let me see. There's one more thing I wanted to bring up. Talking about music festival.
Did you want to bring up the fact that you can send donations to donate@cspmd.org?
That's good.
That would help. That would help us fund these projects that we're looking to do and get the property up and running that we want to have in Baltimore proper, right?
So yeah, that's one great option. They could go through PayPal and send something to donate@cspmd.org. That's a great option. Or they could click on the link in the description of this video, where there is actually a connection to our website, where there's some more descriptions about programs that they can donate to specifically. Because I know some people, when they donate, they want to know how their money's going to be spent. And there's regulations for nonprofits. People don't realize that. So there's three campaigns right now. One, to get us musical instruments, because aside from beating bows, which we make, we need some drums and stuff like that for our music programs. There's one to donate for a physical space. We're trying to open up a space in the fall here. And then there's another one for actual teacher salaries, which would go to paying our teachers to teach capoeira, to teach music, to teach art. And then we also have a category for like tutoring STEM reinforcement, because I am a certified math teacher. And unfortunately, many students, both adult and kids, hate when I teach sometimes, because I do like to throw in mathematical terms into.
You 100% do. And I'll be finishing my bachelor's in kinesiology shortly myself. So
see, there you go.
I look forward to doing this as well.
So go click on that. But while you're doing that, we're going to once again. Here's another musical festival, Halloween.
Oh, it's just Halloween,
right?
By the way, that's Monitora Vermelhinha from my group down in Florida. She's awesome. Check her out on Instagram.
Hold on one second. Let me see. You said
Monitora Vermelhinha. I think that's her Instagram handle.
All right. That's who's going to be in this video real quick. Monitora Vermelhinha. She came to Halloween, which happened near Wyoke, I think was the name of the place, or Oak something in Florida. Gave a musical festival in Florida.
Middle of nowhere, North Florida.
Right. Actually, before we do that, let me do this. Right. So I was actually able to. I got there, though late. I got there. Here's a picture of boom. Bandaid.
That was a fun group, man. We had a fun time doing that workshop.
Right, a pretty eclectic group there of musical festival goers who showed up to learn a day of capoeira.
That was a rough day, I tell you.
I know I had fun. And then another great thing is meeting random people who want to play. Now, like you said, hold on. In blue shorts is Monitora Vermelhinha. So she's trained with you for a little while.
Yep.
Right, she's trained. But then this other guy is just some random dude. It's just a guy.
Yep.
That saw us like goofing around, because we're not instruments. There's a band way up in front on stage actually playing.
Well, this guy has a story that it's another very, I noticed, American thing. I think he did capoeira like one semester in college or something like that. That happens a lot here, where people are like, oh, I did capoeira for like a week or so and blah, 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 blah. And they have that college experience. So for them, it really brings back good memories, and they come out and they play. And I love doing that as well. And that, by the way, I do believe that is her fiance now, Kasiki, also in our group down in Florida.
So I stopped it. I really wish. Sorry, this is more a pet peeve of mine, but the two of them play all the time.
Yeah.
So I really would have liked to seen him jump in, and it could have been when I was recording. I don't know. I would have liked to seen him play random dude, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, we have hopefully this year, right? We have COVID and all that with vaccines going on. It looks like some life will get quote unquote back to normal. So we should be at Floyd Fest in July once again this year, which should be fun because there's some really good acts scheduled. And then hopefully that's at the end of July. Hopefully at the end of September, we'll be at Kunta Kinte Festival. I bring that up because while it's not a 3-day musical festival, it is normally one full day, and there's all the kinds of musical acts. Usually there's like some West African groups that go through there, all kinds of Caribbean and West African food, arts and crafts, that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll be there. Don't know about
I think that festival and that location is very important to capoeira here in the States. And I felt that really got underplayed during my time in DC, and I was actually kind of disheartened that more people didn't take advantage of that, especially when you try to do rodas out there. I mean, it was a slaver port, and I mean that's where capoeira came from. It came from the slavery in Brazil, and down there, I mean, you go to Pelourinho, you go to Bahia, and things like that. Like, yeah, that's where it came from. That's where the slavers came in. That's what happened there. Like, this is the closest we're going to have without going to Brazil to experience that history and have that connection. So like going to Kunta Kinte Festival, even though it is maybe only a one-day affair, I think it's really important to have capoeira represented there.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that, I mean, I reached out to them yesterday. I'm really hoping that they'll be, and they have been very receptive over the years. So I'm really hoping that they want to receive us again. Because you're right. I mean, it is, especially when we talk about Salvador, Mercado Modelo, it's in a bunch of songs, yep. Mercado Modelo in Salvador. It's right along the water. It's where, even today, you walk through there and it's mostly Afro-descendants that are working in there. It's all Black people for the most part working in the shops that are still there, selling goods that they make or that they get from elsewhere to make. But there's actually a permanent elevated platform that's in a circle for capoeira there. Now, we're obviously not going to get that in Annapolis, but in Annapolis, the market house, which is right, it's a little market right by the harbor, was actually, it was a general market. I don't want to say it was just a slavers market, but that's unfortunately the history that it has, was that it's one of the places, and according to the story, that's where Kunta Kinte was sold in the 1700s. So I never really made the full connection like you're making right now, but yeah, the connection to the fact that, it was the Salvador of at least the DMV area at the time is historically factual. Damn. So yeah, we'll be back there. Yeah, man, I don't know. We're at 80 minutes, right? That's 80 minutes. An hour plus 20 minutes. Anything?
Look at you doing math, like some sort of math teacher.
What we do, man. So yeah, we talked about capoeira history. We talked about our own personal histories. Capoeira Social Project. We talked about where we started back in 2008, doing programs throughout the Baltimore area, doing workshops. Christian, who was just on here, who gave us that, he reminded us about 2000 or Ocean's 12. He was there when I taught you guys how to make beating bows several years ago. That's on our YouTube channel, folks. If you want to see any of these videos. Unfortunately, let me see here. It's okay.
It's funny. I feel like we've talked a lot, but at the same time, we've only touched on all these topics. Like, there's so much more information for all of them. It's crazy.
I know. But we don't want to sit here. You still got that's awesome. So awesome. Thanks, man. Christian said he still has that beating bow. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome. That's actually one of my favorite workshops to teach. Because I'm old. I grew up doing a lot of manual labor kind of stuff with my dad, working on cars. We built We built a couple sheds, working on motorcycles. I used to build lowrider bicycles in college as well. So making beating bows is one of my favorite workshops to teach because it's so hands-on, and that's manual labor, scraping and opening up tires and all that fun stuff. I mean, I like making kashishis too, but they're a little bit more tedious.
Yeah, kashishi is more like that's more like a long-term kashishi making party. Like you sit together for a long time making kashishis and like maybe grilling food.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Beating bows work that way too. It's not a fast.
True. It doesn't seem as tedious as a kashishi though. Like, but I'll tell you this: my students absolutely love doing it. I love doing it. That was my first experience making a beating bow myself as well. So that I definitely thank you for that, and they had a great time.
Yeah, man. I super enjoyed it as well. And I think it was a little bit after that when you actually officially came on board and started helping out, being on the board of directors. But yeah, man, I'm super excited. I mean, I know you're in school. I too am in school, taking an online course from a Brazilian university. You're working on getting your bachelor's for kinesiology. Just one other thing to touch upon, right? Because I want actually we'll kind of end with this because it's your kind of your wheelhouse of things, right? Because I'm like, I like to study the history. I know a bunch about the history, and we're going to talk to some other people. Like next week, I'm going to be doing the same type of conversation with Mestre High.
I can't wait to see the rest of this series, man.
We're going to talk about aside from capoeira stuff. I mean, that's across the board and everything, especially here in Minas or Belo Horizonte. Usually, when we talk about capoeira, we get a lot of Salvador. With Ashe Capoeira, you get Recife. Your group is Salvador, so you get a lot of the Bahia history. We're going to have Mestre High next week talking about the history because he's the oldest of the presenters from Belo Horizonte, where I spent a lot of time training. He's going to talk about the history of Capoeira in Belo Horizonte, maybe talk a little bit about Mestre Dunga in there too, I hope. Then that week after that, we're going to be talking to Contra Mestre Pedro Campolinho. I trained with him with a bunch of Angola. He's definitely on that non-violent side of things, so it's going to be interesting to get that history. He was in England for a while, started his group over there, and that's where he how the world's small. While he was over in England, it's actually when he met somebody from Olinda, which is near Recife, and he started training Samba de Coco. So we'll talk about Samba de Coco in 2 weeks.
Nice.
And then in 3 weeks, we'll talk to Amarelo, and he is an old soul. He's like the same age as us, but he has that like 80-year-old kind of strictness mentality to capoeira, trying to stick to the roots. Amazing percussionist for Samba de Roda, so we're going to talk to him about that stuff. Then the week after that, we'll talk to Mestre Ferradura, who's from Rio, who does a lot of the stuff that you're also bringing to the organization here, to Capoeira Social Project, because I can read Portuguese, I can speak Portuguese, I can translate that kind of stuff. So I'm really the historical side of things. But like I said, my flexibility is shit. So I'm definitely not always the best person for movement. But you're
you're the brains on the brawn,
right?
Yeah.
So here's you, like, you see the opportunity. Let me do a Keda Jaheen on this graffitied pole. And the advertisement, right, for this talk with you, there's you doing like a perfect straight as a arrow handstand on a park bench. So aside from, right, you studying kinesiology, which is science of movement, right, you also are finishing up or have finished, I can't quite remember, your yoga teaching certificate.
I've finished my yoga teaching certificate. I just have to get the certification through the Alliance. But yeah, I finished it, and I've studied it for a long time. Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm a huge one on the movement side of things. And it's funny because my personal philosophy in life is actions speak louder than words anyway. So I definitely that's why I tend to that. Like, I love the history of capoeira, but I feel like for all the notes, for all the books, for all the stuff, like, the history is translated through the movements and the music.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really love about it. Yeah.
So, man, I know there's more we could talk about, but let's save it for later. You know what?
Right.
Just tell people, hey, make a donation and tell us something that you would like us to go more in depth about, and we'll come back, either him or me or both of us or none of us. We'll come back on another day and talk about that. Because, boom, right now I think we can give everybody a break. It's been an hour and a half. There is more, but I think we've let people know who we are, where we come from, where we're going, what they can learn from us.
On that note, I look forward to the future. I like where the social projects is going. I know over this past year, because of COVID and life and all that, you've been doing a lot of work on the back end, and I highly appreciate that. And I can't wait to hit the ground running with this in Baltimore. I remember when I was in DC, and I look forward to getting back there shortly. I had a lot of success in the teaching world, teaching movement in capoeira and things like that. So I know the people there are truly going to enjoy it. And I genuinely, this is what I've wanted to do with capoeira since I committed to teaching it, is I look forward to delivering this to underprivileged, in particular myself, teenagers, underprivileged youth. I definitely think that teenagers between the ages of like 12 and 18, I feel that that's the target audience for me. And I can't wait to be able to get out there and disseminate this to the communities.
You know what? Thanks for saying that. I kind of feel really dumb now that it's taken us an hour and 27 minutes to talk about the fact that our programs right now it's not, we do want to teach adults, and actually right now, if you go to capoeirasocialproject.org, you can register, and we're doing some virtual classes right now because we're waiting for COVID to pass before meeting up. Maybe with warm weather, we'll be outside shortly, but our wheelhouse, like I said, we started with this group of refugees at the very beginning, and over the years, we've been teaching after-school programs, and that's our goal, is to teach youth from middle school, at least after school, from like elementary through high school. And actually, we're going after some funding, hopefully, to maybe even during the daytime be able to go to what are they called? Like pre-K,
the charter schools and the Montessori schools.
Something like charter schools, daycares, where we can go in and reach. I'm not comfortable with like 1-year-olds, but like I said, we had 4-year-olds.
Through my group, I actually did some work in some preschools with 1 to 3-year-olds. We did a few programs with that, and they also did an after school. So I've been working with a large number of kids for a number of years now.
So I mean that's boo to me for not having. I could have had a banner talking about that, but yeah. So one more time, if you'd like to make a donation, you can send through PayPal or click on one of the links, and that's what our program. That's what this funding is going to, folks. Sorry, I should have been more clear about that. The funding through this whole series is going to promote youth programs, kids programs, after-school programs for first grade through high school in East Baltimore. As a Morganite, I did my master's at Morgan State, which is in East Baltimore. That's where most of our programs with my old instructor was. Way back in the day was in East Baltimore. So that's where we're aiming to be. I'd like to thank you for being here, Bandaid. Talking about dealing with really young kids. That's something we're going to talk about with Mestre Ferradora in 4 weeks' time. We'll be back next Thursday. Okay, next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Mestre High to talk about to continue this Capoeira Conversation series and to talk about some other things. So hopefully everybody can join in.
Like I say, what's the best way for people to join in? YouTube, obviously, Facebook.
Well, we'll be broadcasting both on our page on Facebook as well as YouTube. We haven't really shared the link too much for YouTube because we'd like some subscribers. We need 30 people to subscribe to get our custom URL, so it'll be easier for us to share that. But yeah, we'll be live again.
Okay, so look, I made this promise, and I'm serious about it. If we get over 1,000 subscribers, I will do a backflip live on YouTube, and I haven't done one in a long time, and I'm nervous. But if we get over 1,000, I will go live on solid ground and do a backflip. Okay, you heard it. It's happening. But we need over 1,000 subscribers, and we're just trying to get to 100 right now. So start subscribing, share it with your friends, get a lot more. I'll have time to lose weight and be able to do a backflip again.
Boom! You heard it here first, folks. Okay, 1,000 subscribers. Instructor Bandaid does a backflip live on all of our channels, or maybe during an interview. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
I'll do it during an interview. Yeah.
So subscribe your dog, your cat, your parental units, all that good stuff. Get as many people as you can so we can get that custom URL. YouTube link. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, Christian.
No, he's asking for the link so you can subscribe.
It's yeah.
If you go to YouTube, type in Capoeira Social Project. That's the best way right now.
I think I found it here. Hold on real quick. Oh, we're at 71.
Yay!
Boom. So I just posted the link in the chat here. Thanks, Christian. Thanks for sticking through this. It seems like he's been with us for a hot minute on this whole thing. We've gone from 10 to 5 to I can see all the likes too. Mestre highlight, Professora Signa from Oficina as well. Couple other Quero Grillo, who's going to be one of our participants. Like I said, he was in the movie Besouro.
I think you mentioned him in the yeah.
He'll be coming through. All right. We actually had nobody. This is fun. We can see our what are they? Analytics. We had 4 people currently, 3 through my page, 1 through Capoeira Social on Facebook, and nobody at the moment on YouTube. That's life. But anyway, thanks for being here.
So we have those stats on video for the future when we do this again, and we can see how different they are then.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to end this now. Any last words, Bandaid?
I would always love to end on something inspiring, but I am always at a loss for words in moments like this, which is hilarious because you usually can't shut me up.
All right, no worries. So we're going to end off here. Just remember, folks, thanks for being here. Try to keep that PMA, positive mental attitude, and we hope to see you again next week. All right, Ate, ciao.
Ashe.